Every single RFP tool you'll find right now call itself AI powered. Every single one of them. Loopio, AI powered. Responsive, AI powered. That random tool you found at 11 p.m. on a product hunt list, also AI powered. They don't all mean the same thing. And if you pick the wrong one, you're going to spend 6 figures, at least 3 months of rollout time. And still, your team would be manually assembling RFP responses at 2 a.m., wondering what went wrong. In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 categories of an AI RFP tools right now, show you exactly which tools will fall into each one of the segment, and tell you which one are actually worth your money in 2026. Let's get into it. Quick bit of a context, I'm Snehil. I've spent my last 4 years embedded with proposal teams. Everything from 5-person startup doing 10 RFP a year to enterprise sales team running 300 plus. I've sat in the demo call, read through G2 reviews, and most importantly, I've spoken directly to the proposal manager who are actually using these tools in their day-to-day. They're not just evaluating them. This channel, Win More RFPs, is where I share what I actually find, what works, what doesn't, what the sales decks won't tell you, like never. No vendor relationship, no sponsored content, just what I've seen in the real world and have felt as well. All right, so let's talk about why most AI RFP comparison completely miss the point. The best AI RFP software isn't the one with the most feature. The whole premise of this video, and I want you to keep that in mind throughout. Every tool says AI powered. Very few tools actually mean it. Here's what nobody tells you when you are evaluating these tools. When an AI tool says AI powered, it can mean 3 completely different things. A keyword search dressed up as an AI, a prompt routed to GPT-5, or an agent that actually reads the RFP, plans the response, and drafts it. All called the same time. And G2 and Granter can tell you the difference. They rank by review volume, which means the tools they have been around for like 15 years, they rank the highest. Not because their AI is better, but because they have more customer like yourself. The buyer also can't tell the difference in 30-minute demo. Everyone shows up the same scripted flow. The real difference shows up at a scale. Week 3, RFP 50. So here's the only question that actually matters. When you are evaluating any of these tools, how much they work and how much does the hardworking is being done by AI. That's it. That's the whole framework. Everything else is like noise. It just goes around and you would not have to focus on them. I'm going to talk about the framework now. 3 categories sorted by how much of the response work the AI actually owns. Tier 1, generic AI wrappers. ChatGPT with an RFP shaped prompt. AI does about 20% of the work. Tier 2, bolted on AI, legacy responses platform. Generative layer added on top. Humans still do most of the praising, assembly, and the content governance. AI did about 40%, you can say. But when we talk about the third one, tier 3, agentic workflow AI. Agents that reads, plan, draft, handle the whole content governance automatically. Human reviews and approves it, not assembled. AI does about 80% of the work. Less AI work on the left, more AI work on the right. Let me show you exactly which tool would work where. We'll start up with the generic AI wrappers. AutoRFP, one up. These are the softwares that one could use. Honestly, just using ChatGPT or Claude directly falls here too. A language model, an RFP shaped prompt, a basic UI on top, you upload the question, it generates you the answer. Fast, cheap, sometimes free as well. Where they actually work, I'd say solo founders, first handful RFPs, quick rewrites, and tone adjustment, existing answers, brainstorming structure for a section you have never written before. Free, fast, no procurement cycle, all good there. Where do they fall apart? These are just wrapper built on OpenAI and RAG. There's no knowledge base, no memory of your previous responses, no content governance. Every RFP starts from scratch. The response quality is generic. The AI has no idea what makes your product different, what your past win looks like, and what not to say, specifically if we talk about. The verdict? Find your first few RFPs become a liability the moment proposal are tied into real revenue. That's what happens every time you do that. In here, AI did about 20% of the work at this tier. Tier 2, bolted on AI. This is where most of the big names comes in. Loopio, responsive, which used to be called RFPIO, QorusDocs, Unplanned Qvidian, legacy response management platform with generative layer added in 2024. These are legitimate platform. They have been around for years now. They have had large number of customer base for a reason. But here's what actually running underneath. Four boxes, content library curated, Q&A pairs, manually maintained, bolted on AI, a generic LLM writing response. Then this is the third box, manual content governance, keeping the library up to date. It takes a lot of time, I must tell you that. And finally, AI suggestion, GPT-4 rewrites it and matches the answer. At the end, it is the manual work over there. This is the third box and very important in there. Most buyers don't see it coming. Someone on your team is responsible for keeping that library current, updating answers when your product changes, removing outdated content, flagging conflicts. That's an ongoing time cost that never goes away with these tools. The honest translation, you still maintain the library, you still matches the question to answer, and you still assemble the responses. The AI just rewrites the paragraph at the end. It's an upgrade, not a re-architecture. Verdict, great. I mean, it's absolutely fine if you have a clean, governed content library, just want a faster draft. Painful if you're starting from zero. Now, I'll be honest. Responsive and Loopio, they're not bad tools. They work for specific teams in specific situations. If you have a dedicated person managing the library and your content is already well governed, they'll do the job. But the AI is average at the best. You're getting AI autocomplete, not a AI authorship. The manual content governance is a burden. I've spoken teams paying 60 to 65K, 80K a year for responsive who are still spending hours every week just to keeping their library current. AI does about 40% of the work at this tier. The rest, it's your team who will be working 2 a.m. in the night, 3 a.m. in the night, and they'll get the job done. But at the end, it's human. They're working there. Where responsive and Loopio genuinely makes sense if you're an enterprise with a dedicated proposal team, a large content library that's already clean, well maintained, and you just need faster draft existing content. In that specific scenario, they work the best. But if you are building from the scratch and your library is messy, you'll feel the pain. Let's talk about the third tier. I really love this one. This is where actually AI comes in. You know, they actually get it done. Everything is automated. It just Agentic AI workflow. Agentic platform built from scratch around autonomous response agents. Tools in this space, Inventive AI, and others like Hybris, are fundamentally different. Not a library with the AI on top. The AI is the foundation itself. Here's what actually happens when you upload a RFP to an agentic platform. Read and praise. It ingests the RFP, identifies every single question, classifies each one by type, and you are not doing it manually, by the way. Step 2, planning. It builds a response plan, source owner, dependencies, gaps in your knowledge base before a human even touches it. Now comes the third part, draft. Generates first draft answer from your knowledge base, contextualize and personalize based on what the buyer are actually asking, not generic. Your content, your product, and your past win, everything included together. And the final part, this is the biggest architectural difference from tier 2. No more manual content governance. The AI automatically detects the conflict and the outdated content. No more manual Q&A pair maintenance. The system handles this automatically. Now talking about the architectural difference, the library isn't human curated input. It's an agent built output. Tier 2 asks what answer matches this question. Tier 3 asks what is the type of buyer you're trying to find out and what's the best answer we can produce right now. This is where the major difference comes between tier 2 and tier 3. Now comes to the verdict. Right fit when RFPs are real channel and the team time is the bottleneck. Team using agentic platform have reported automatically 70 to 80% of their responses after rollout. Implementation is 1 to 2 weeks, not 8 to 12. The knowledge base builds itself from your existing document rather than reoccurring manual curation upfront. Pricing lands between 10 to 40K a year, which is comparable to often less than what you'd pay for responsive or Loopio AI at this scale. Without the overhead of someone managing the library full time, it does about 80% of the job, what most of the tier AI tools are not doing. Let's have a real quick side by side comparison. Let me put all three tiers side by side so you all can see the difference one by one. I'll start with read and classify as the full RFP. Wrappers? No. Bolted on? Partial. Agentic? 100%. First draft from the scrap. Wrappers, they give you something very generic. Bolted one is limited to whatever is in the library. Agentic one, they pulse up from your library, from your product, and then from your past. It's a big win right there. Knowledge maintenance. Wrapper have none. Tier 2 requires manual curation every week or two. Tier 3, it's self-updating. There's nobody who's going to look after it. It's going to keeps on updating depending on the data that it feeds in. Content governance. This is the one most people, they miss comparing. Generic wrappers have governance available, but it's entirely manual. Bolted one has no automated governance at all. That's fully on your team. It's their accountability. Agentic platform have automated this whole process with zero manual overhead. Source citation on every answer, wrappers no, but tier 2 and agentic, yes indeed. Implementation time, wrapper is like, it takes a couple of minutes. In tier 2, 8 to 12 weeks. In tier 3, 1 to 2 weeks. RFP turnaround, wrappers, they'll take somewhat days. Manual one, 2 to 3 days. Tier 3, I'd say the agentic one, it's few hours and it's done. Pricing, wrappers are around 10K. Tier 2, I'd say 20 to 60K per year. And tier 3 would be 10 to 40K easily. It's worth noticing that the tier 3 is not the most expensive option in here, and the content governance gaps also alone justifies the difference that you are paying for. Now I'm going to go a bit into the specifics on the 4 tools that come up in almost every conversation I have with different leaders, different people in the similar industry. Inventive AI, any day. Responsive, indeed. Loopio, 110%, and AutoRFP, we can never forget about that. I want to be fair here. Responsive and Loopio are not bad tool at all, but there are specific dimensions where they are very average and where you'll feel the gap itself. Now the final comparison table, 5 dimension based on 20 customer interviews and 100 G2 and grantor reviews. AI response quality and time to first draft, Inventive wins here. An independent evaluation by RAD AI, a health tech company, and CNBC Top 50 Distributor of 2025 showed 2 times better response quality. Responsive is strong when the library is well maintained, but drafts are slower. Loopio is library bound with generic AI layer on top. Content governance and hallucination control, Inventive wins. Validated zero hallucination, workflow, source citation on every answer. This alone saves time. Around 70% every time you'd be using it. They'd otherwise spend on manual governance. Responsive and Loopio have mature controls, but they are human curated. Meaning your team still owns the governance work every week till late in the night. Now we're going to talk about library management. Library management, Inventive AI Content Manager is self-updating. You would not have to put or feed any data in there. It automatically flags the outdated content that will be a conflict down the line. Responsive and Loopio, they both rely on manual AI content curation. The pattern you'll notice in each tier, the library management is always a problem every single time in tier 1 and tier 2. But if you are going with the tier 3 agentic tools, they are splendid in here. Now we'll be talking about the UI and the UX. Inventive is built for agentic flow from the ground up. Responsive, Loopio both carry a legacy, workflow, product feel, completely different. They are functional, but you can tell they are built for a different era. AutoRFP has an old, a very outdated UI, and I must say it needs a huge upgrade. Return on investment over these timeline and the adoption speed. Inventive delivers ROI in about a month with adoption in 15 maximum 15 days, 110% on that. I've personally used it, so I really prefer this one. Responsive and Loopio, they both look about 3 months bare minimum before the team sees the return. AutoRFP is similar about 2 months, I must say. Yeah, about 2 months. Bottom line to it, inventive AI leads in every dimension where the AI is doing the actual work, drafting, governing, and learning. Again, responsive and Loopio are established platform with a beautiful customer base to them. But on the 5 dimension where the AI does the heavy lifting, the gap between tier 2 and tier 3 is very huge. So, which one you should actually buy? There's genuinely no universal answer to it, only the best for you. If you are early stage, doing under 5 RFPs a year, no content library yet, don't buy anything. Use ChatGPT with a decent prompt template. It gets you 80% of the way, and you don't need to spend 30K a year automating your 4 responses. If you are mid market doing about 10 to 100 RFPs a year, RFPs are a real part of your revenue, and your team's time is the bottleneck. Agentic workflow AI is where you should be. Inventive AI specifically if you want fast time to value and want the AI owning the drafting and governance. Your bottleneck is people's hour per RFP, and agentic tools collapse. That is the fastest. Now, for the enterprise, this is where it gets more nuanced. If you are a large organization with heavy compliance requirement and a large, well-maintained library, responsive and Loopio can do the job. But be very honest to yourself, you still need someone managing those workflow and keeping a track of it. The manual content governance is a burden and it does not go away. There are legacy softwares and platforms maintaining them in the ongoing resource cost. You are essentially hiring for governance. The alternate worth evaluating seriously is Inventive AI. It has all the governance and the QA library support you'd expect from an enterprise tool. But the AI manages it instead of your team. You can still assign a human owner to specific content, set review cycle 2.5, 3 months based on your compliance requirement, and the system flags anything outdated, conflicts before even it reaches the response. And the AI agents responding to the RFP are contextualizing and personalizing the answers to what the buyers is actually asking, not just matching the library entry. So you are getting enterprise grade governance alongside the headcount cost of managing a legacy platform. Before I wrap this around, I want to add something that I think genuinely is important and not talked about enough. Whatever tier you are evaluating, push for a pilot first. If the deal size is above 10,000, any serious vendor should be open to running a pilot before you sign. If they refuse or push hard, that's the signal. It may mean they're not confident in what you'll see when you use the product with your real content and your real RFPs. I personally know teams that bought legacy bolted on AI tools where the AI did not work as expected. The moment the scripted demo were done, the response quality wasn't there. The content governance, it was not there. Far more manual than they were led to believe, and they were locked into a multi-year contract. A pilot gives you the chance to experience the AI on your actual document, evaluate real response, see how the content governance work, practice around it, understand how the workflow is going to look like, and how less of a manual work you'd be doing. Don't skip this step. If the vendor is confident in your product, they'll say yes, obviously. AI power tells you nothing. How much of the work does the AI is actually doing there? And how much governance overhead does it remove from your team? That tells you everything. If it's not chopping off the amount of manual labor you're putting in there, it is not an AI in there. Tier 1 buys you starting point. Tier 2 buys you a faster library, but a little bit of manual governance in there. Tier 3 buys back your team's time, your content governance, and the ability to scale without adding a headcount in there. Ask that question in your next demo, push for a pilot, and then decide. Subscribe if this was useful. New video every week, RFP strategy, proposal workflow, and actually what moves the win rate. Drop a comment if you are evaluating right now different tools, different platforms. If there is anything you want me to cover, and please give me a like. I'd appreciate your contribution in it because you have invested your time. I'd appreciate your feedback, regardless, be it good, be it bad. I'll see you in the next one.